Survivor. Here, ladies and gentlemen, Christina Crawford.
Dearest, of course, that was the first time that we ever talked about domestic violence, and it was the first time that a child had been able to speak out on their own behalf. So I think that what happened was that a lot of children have gotten help, and a lot of parents subsequently have also gotten help.
So you don't feel bad or any tinge of guilty conscience over exposing your mom at her worst, really?
No, it wasn't about that. It was about trying to get help and understanding, and what we have seen now is the whole era of recovery. And so the second book, well, actually it's the third book, Survivor, which is out now, is about the recovery and healing process, and I think we needed to go through that as a country.
Was it truly a terrible childhood, or did it have instances of tough times? Was it a pretty mediocre existence?
Well, no, it was never mediocre. It was never boring, let's say that. It was either very good times or very bad times. The good times were the private times, the times when my mother was not drinking and she was okay in herself, when she had enough love in her own life, either from us or from other people or from her career, that she in and of herself was okay. The bad times became very well known long before I wrote the book. It was well known in the community, it was well known by the people that worked in the house, it was well known by the friends, and they were terrible times. They were violent and destructive times.
In Mommy Dearest, the film, Faye Dunaway portrays your mom as almost a maniacal kind of person, irrational, uncontrollable, incredibly self-centered. All true?
Yes, that's true, yes.
Did she, in fact, squander or use whatever remained of her wealth after her career began to taper down on herself, to live as a star, to the neglect of you children?
Yes, that happened before she married the chairman of the board of Pepsi-Cola, and that was in the 1950s. They were only married for 3 years, but she continued to work for the company for 17 years before she retired.
But never spending the money on you kids, rather, or at least on you and your brother, rather spending it on herself. She said, to be a movie star, you have to look and act like a movie star. So you were cashing in bottles for deposits so you could take the bus when she was riding stretch limousines.
That's right. I was 19 years old and on my own in New York and getting no money from my family. And I was recycling. It's very popular today. It's not so easy when you're 19.
Does your bitterness stem from that financial neglect?
I'm not bitter. That's your words, not mine.
She cut you out of the will, though.
But that was her unresolved crisis. That had nothing to do with me. I'm sorry that she went to her grave not understanding herself. Because if she'd understood herself, she would have understood a lot more about me.
Do you think she went to her grave loving you?
Yes, in her own way, I think she did, except that she knew so little about love that it wouldn't be the kind of love of today from this vantage point many, many years later. I had a lot to learn.
You know, I want to go from the stage right to stage left, from, if we can call her the self-centered star, to the saint, to Marisa and John Wayne. Was he, in fact, so saintly in real life?
I don't know about saintly, but he was a good person and he was a great dad.
Was he good to you kids?
He was wonderful. I couldn't have had anything better.
I talked about stars casting long shadows, if any. I mean, he literally did. A 6'4" guy. He was made to look even bigger because they used small-sized door frames in many of those cowboy films. But the shadow, the legend of John Wayne is so enormous. Is that a difficult role to fill, shoes to fill?
Not for me. It isn't. He was just a great person, and he led the way for all of us children to just have nothing but, you know, good memories and people that just love my dad.
You know, we had your brother on a Sons of Legend program several months ago, and he's in the acting business, and that must be very tough to be the son of the Duke, to be John Wayne's kid in acting.
That's a really good question, because I thought that was the way life was until I went to school when I was about 6 years old, and I went to public school. And it was through visiting my friends and seeing the relationship that they had in their home with their parents, and the fact that they weren't scared and they weren't spoken to in the same way, that I began to realize that there was a real difference between what I was experiencing in my home and what most of my friends were experiencing.
My question is for Christina also. How does your brother feel about your books?
Well, my brother and I are very close. There's only 3 years difference between us. And so because we shared very much the same experience, although he has wanted to be a very private person, ever since he got back from Vietnam, he decided that he didn't want anything to do with the limelight. But we are very close, and he has been very supportive. Thank you for asking about him.
Speaking of Vietnam, Rory, you lost a brother, Sean Flynn, who was really your father's boy in every sense of the word over there in Southeast Asia. We'll talk to you not only of your famous dad, but of your famous, some call them notorious journalist.
Were they also? And why haven't they come forth and said, gee, I have too?
Well, they were in their own ways, my brother particularly so, but they have all chosen to be very private people, and so they prefer not to be in the limelight.
Christina, did your mom use you kids, especially when you were very young, as sort of props?
Yes. Particularly me.
Name you Joan Crawford Jr.?
Yes. Can you imagine? Thank goodness she changed it. But when I was adopted, she changed it to Christina. But we were, particularly I, was given little speeches to give to the press when they came, and if they asked me anything that wasn't in the script, I would just say, ask my mommy. But, so I was an actress from the time I was a little girl.
Yes, this question is for Christina as well. Could you mention real quick one or the best good thing about your mother?
She had a wonderful sense of humor, and she loved to tell dirty jokes.
Tell us one now. No, commercial break. Do it in the commercial break. Okay, Rory, I must say that your dad was, and this is probably an indictment of my machismo, my favorite actor of all time. I mean, I just love the Charge of the Light Brigade and Captain Blood and all those great adventure films. Robin Hood, I love that one too. And I was very disturbed in recent years with this this great rush of cheap tabloid-type biographies branding him everything from bisexual to Nazi spy to smuggler. How do you characterize those charges?
Well, God, I hate to hear about these things, you know, because there's nothing you can do about it. People want to sensationalize on famous people. For example, I have written a story myself about my first 12 years with my father.
Jen from the Miami International Airport is just interrupting briefly, but go ahead. You were saying, I'm sorry.
And basically, this was a little too soft. I mean, I've written the story from the standpoint of a 12-year-old girl, the years that I spent with him, and I wanted to do it for a television movie, but there really wasn't enough sensationalism in it. You know, they seem to really love that, and I don't know how to protect him from it. You know,
in a less malevolent, in a more benign sense, he did have a pretty wild life, though.
Yes, he certainly did.
I mean,
And so, you know, I don't know. Personally, I mean, I don't, you know, when I read that, I thought, well, I mean, I don't know. You know, the mind, the fantasies that one can have in the mind, you don't always have to act them out. But, I mean, I believe in the unlimited capacity of imagination and fantasy, so...
Well, would you end up with a man like your dad?
I have.
Does that bore you?
No. No, it doesn't at all.
I was worried with all that talk of the dark side there. That
No, it's very entertaining.
Linda Christian, would you stand up? Linda? Because I don't know if people in the back can see you. Tyrone's former wife. Did he want it to chase other women, or did he want it just because...
I think he didn't have to do that. They chased him.
You heard your daughter say about the rumors of homosexuality and bisexuality.
Well, once they're dead, they cannot defend themselves. I never noticed anything like that. We had 3 babies that didn't come completely into the world, and then we had these 2 magnificent creatures, and he still produced one after his death, the boy was born, Tyrone Power the fourth was born after that. I don't think that shows that he was very like that.
I wish you hadn't done that, but but anyway, it sure doesn't. He would have to be the classic actor of all times if that were the case. You were discovered, ironically, yourself an actress.
By your hero and my hero.
Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn. Yeah.
I mean, there but for fortune, Taryn could have been Errol Flynn's daughter.
Yeah, except that she was born many years later.
So Rory and Taryn, you are related in a way. Okay, we'll talk much more with all our daughters, in this case, a widow of a legend. And the audience here, our vast audience at the Bayfront Amphitheater, is loaded with questions, busting to ask them. Give us 2 minutes and come back to Miami.
Quiet Man.
Why The Quiet Man? That seems so atypical of John Wayne's movies.
I don't know. I just think it's a really nice little love story, and it's got a great cast, and John Ford directed it. It's just a beautiful movie.
I love True Grit. I thought that was really
That was good,
great.
too.
Okay, I have a question for Christine. Do you have any children? And if so, how has your childhood affected how you raised your children?
Another wonderful question. I have a stepson who's now 26, and my childhood directly affected the fact that I didn't have any children of my own, because until I got a little bit older, I didn't have enough recovery to feel that I could take responsibility for a child and raising that child, because I was still so much a child myself. And his experience with me, because we've talked about it, is one that is very open. We are very close. He feels that he can talk to me basically about anything, and we talk about recovery within the family. So thank you.
Hi, this question is for Marissa. I wanted to know, how did your friends feel about knowing that John Wayne was your father as you were growing?
When I was smaller, I went to a private school since kindergarten, and I don't really know if it fazed them when I was that young or not, but once I got into high school, I started kind of realizing that, you know, some people liked me because of who I was, and then other people were just good friends, and, you know, they liked my dad too.
Hi, this question is for the twins. I want to know, besides...
Was he paid commensurate to his popularity?
Oh boy, I think that a black entertainer, at that time was certainly not paid quite
like Bing
comparable to what Mr. Cosby is getting today, but who is.
Really?
I think though that over the years, with his records having been played over and over again, that with royalties and whatnot, he has certainly matched his mark.
Gotcha.
Yes, my question is for Marissa. What is the fondest memory you have of your father off screen?
Oh boy, there's so many of them, but I think the times that we spent together on the boat, he had a boat and we used to go to Catalina a lot, and Canada and Mexico, and just all the times when we spent on the boat.
My question is for Taryn. Didn't I see you in a movie before, and did you have long blonde hair?
Yeah, that was me.
What was the film?
Well, no. It was called Sinbad in the Eye of the Tiger. Is that the one? Yeah. That was with her brother, Patrick. Yeah.
So do you have another film coming?
Actually, I do have another film coming out this fall. It's called Eating.
Adopted you and your brother. And then you got
Two girls. Two girls, and they're absolutely private people. They have children, and they're married.
This is for Taryn. How long has your father, since he's passed away, and do you remember the film Alexander's Ragtime Band?
That was great.
Oh, yeah, that was great. Yeah, I do remember the film. I love that film. He passed away in '58, and in fact, he was 44 also. Yeah.
What was the cause of his death?
A heart attack, except he had a heart attack on location.
I didn't because I felt that I already had so many problems. What if that was going to be another one? And so I never did, although I had the papers, and she never tried to find me either.
And even now, after you've become a celebrity in your own right.
Right,
Certainly a published author, we're very well known.
Right.
My question is for Rory. I'd like to know what she's doing now with her life.
I'm a still photographer. I work in the film business. I'm on the other side of the camera. And I also write a little bit.
My question is for Taryn. Do you feel intimidated by your father's career, and why or why not?
Actually, I think I find it more of an inspiration.
I made a living. That's what you're supposed to do when you write books. But I wouldn't say that it was wealthy considering what they're paying authors today. But certainly I made a living, yes. Thank goodness the book sold.
How do you feel about the implication of the question? Sort of like you were a mercenary cashing in on...
Well, I understand that a lot of people have heard that through the media, but it's really immaterial to me because that's what you're supposed to do when you write books if you're lucky enough to have people buy them. And I've written 3 now, and people have bought all 3 of them, which I'm delighted about, and I hope to go on writing. I'm working on another book now.
Will it also be autobiographical?
No, it's about politics. Yeah.
Congressman Dearest, I can see it now.
Hi, Geraldo. I'd like to ask some of the ladies, any of the ones whose fathers died of lung cancer, if they're doing anything to promote children not to smoke cigarettes or themselves, anything to the cause.
That's a great one, Casey Timlin. That would be a good one to get involved in.
Well, that would be.
Play a great song of your dad's and then say the tragedy is. You could do it right now.
Hold up, no smoking. I love that tie.
Oh, thanks. That's another show, though.
My question is for Christine, and I was wondering if that was her way of getting even with her mother, maybe writing the book.
Can you give us a brief answer, Christine? We're almost out of time.
Sure. Telling the truth is not getting even. I would like to say that for the children of America today.
Take a break. Be right back. Avoid that kind of problem.
I think a lot had to do with the fact that we weren't really brought up in the entertainment environment. We were born in L.A. and lived there only until we were 12 years old. We moved back east to Massachusetts. So we really lived, right. We lived normal lives, and we weren't really thrown into that.
Christina, quickly, how do you want people to remember your mom? Quick.
Well, I think as a great actress and as somebody